and welcome back to Alif Tech Talk series. Here with us, we have Mr. Truls Dahlsveen, an preliminary person into security and an MVP as well. In this particular video, we are going to focus more on cost optimization in Azure, smart strategies to limit expenditure. This will be a guide on how to effectively manage costs in Azure without compromising on quality or performance. So the stage is all yours, Mr. Truls. Let's begin.
Thank you very much. So again, with me being a security MVP and my focus being on security, I want to talk today about optimizing costs for the security suite in Azure. I'm going to focus mainly on three things that I think is important. It's going to be Entra ID and Entra ID identity protection. Second, we're going to talk a little bit about Defender for Cloud, some strategies around that. And then at the end, we're going to talk about Microsoft Sentinel and log ingestion there and how to do some cost savings, hopefully. Starting out with Entra ID. So for those of you who don't know what Entra ID identity protection is, Entra ID is Azure AD, it just changed its name. Identity protection works by detecting risks. So you have a lot of identity risks. And this is important. I'm sure everyone has heard of zero trust, but basically, to tell a very, very long story short, we have moved from a network-based perimeter defense where everyone had to go to a physical location to work, and now we can connect from anywhere. And this means that it's no longer in the organization or company's control, the entire network. So we can't, all the network nodes where the traffic passes through, we can't reliably connect that anymore. So we can't say, oh, if you're inside the network, you're safe, because you rarely are. So we have moved over to identity being the new primary perimeter for most people. The network is still going to be a perimeter some places, but it's mainly identity. This means that, and Microsoft just released their report on this, but I think the increase was 300% the last from 2021 to 2022 in identity-based attacks. So this is very important. The identity protection suite will take a lot of auto-generated signals, some expert-generated signals, and some end-user generated signals, and it will tell you which users are risky, which sign-ins from users are risky, and what risky apps you have. I will say, if you don't have Entra ID identity protection enabled, you should get started with that immediately. I'm going to share my screen quickly just to visualize this. But as you can see here, what I was just talking about, this is what I was just talking about. It integrates very well into all the tools you need. And when it comes to cost savings here, I would say this is the one area you shouldn't skimp on implementing. This is very important. Identity protection and having good identity hygiene. And this is going to be multi-factor, strong multi-factor authentication, conditional access policies, right? Everything you need for using conditional access policies is going to be very important. So I would say for cost advice on this, I would say this is the number one priority. So here I wouldn't recommend saving anything actually, but that's how it goes. I would say this should be the main focus, because conditional access and the risk-based part of ID protection is very important to be able to protect ourselves against the most common attacks against most of our users. Having said that, let's talk about Defender for Cloud. Now, I think most of you know Defender for Cloud, but Microsoft Defender for Cloud is a multi-cloud sort of posture management, right? Workload protection. Um, it's how you secure all your cloud assets. So if it's a database, a server, right, S3 bucket in AWS, whatever it is, it can be protected by Defender for Cloud. The same with DevOps security management. So it integrates there as well. And then it's also something to do with cloud security posture. Now, you're going to have a lot of things into Defender for Cloud. And I would say one very good strategy here is to split your workloads into production, development, and testing. How you do it, it's up to you. But if you want to save on costs here, it's very important to know that for most of these things, you can only change the settings on a subscription basis. So this means that if everything is in the same subscription, you are not able to say have some VMs with Defender for Servers Plan 1 and some with Plan 2. There is a $10 difference, I think, between Plan 1 and Plan 2. So you should plan accordingly when you're deploying. This means that you should have all the production workloads in one subscription. You should have Plan 2 enabled, Defender for containers, Defender for servers, everything. And that should be the main focus on your spending. And then you're going to want to have at least, I think, ideally, a test or a development environment that very closely mimics the production environment. But here, you could opt for something like a Defender for Servers Plan 1 and maybe not have all the same security things enabled. If the development or test environment also have the same public openings as your production environment, then you might want to consider actually having the same um, protections as the production workload. A lot of people will say, oh, it's just development, it's just test, but it's a very good way to for a threat actor to be able to see how you set up your environment and look into what kind of security measurements you're taking. So it's very important if it's accessible from the outside in some way, like your production environment is, that it's closed down the same way. But if it's offline, you don't have any means to access it. This would be the focus on cutting cost, maybe selecting another Defender for service plans or something like that. Um, Yeah, that's mainly to do with Defender for Cloud. So it's I think it's for most parts, I think it's very good value in Defender for Cloud. I think if you're wondering for something to put money into something, I think if you already have licenses for something like Defender for Endpoint, I think Defender for Cloud makes a lot of sense. I think it's a very strong tool. The fact that it's all in one place and you can control GCP on premise using Azure Arc, AWS, and Azure from one pane of glass is very strong. And it's I think it's very fairly well priced. You can take a look at the pricing options. Um, so part of it is actually free. Um, which is the baseline one. But it's billed per server per hour. But I think for 1 month, it's around $5 for plan one and I think it's $15 for plan two. And then it's databases, it's storage, it's key vaults. So this is um, the costs you're gonna have to deal with. And so you could say, oh, we have some storage accounts which are only for internal usage. We're not planning on exposing them. They have internet access turned off. Then maybe put them in a subscription where you don't need to pay for Defender for storage. But if it's production workload, it's accessible from some servers. Then maybe you want to have Defender for Cloud there. A very important thing about Defender for Cloud, which you need to pay for, which is not included in the foundational, is going to be the attack path analysis. So this is well worth to pay for, because this, if you have some internet exposed servers, then this will allow you to identify possible paths for an attacker to take into your network. So this is very very important stuff. Last topic is going to be Microsoft Sentinel. And this is a big topic. It's not something I can solve today in 5 minutes, unfortunately. But this topic, and this is very, what do you call it? A lot of people have different opinions about this. Um, a lot of people, there are a lot of different ways to go about it. A lot of people will favor what I call everything or everywhere, everything all at once, or something, what the movie is called. But it's the idea is that you connect all of your data sources to Sentinel at the same time. Now, my point is that this will be a very low value for the money you're paying. Since Microsoft Sentinel is a cloud-based security monitoring solution, this means that you have to pay for every bit of data you ingest, bar some that is free, but most of it you will pay for. So this means that you pay for the amount of data that you're taking in, the gigabytes. There are some things to think about when you're doing that. So if you connect a lot of different logs, let's say you have 10 different kinds of products you have bought. So let's say we are connecting Azure Active Directory, Entra ID, identity protection, Azure Activity, and then we connect a lot of different ones, right? So we connect them all. This means you will have a lot of new data coming in. Some of the data you might know from before, but if you're not experienced as a security monitoring team, then some of the data will be new to you. And how you utilize that data is going to be in the beginning hard. So you will have very low value if you connect all of these things at the same time, because there's so much you will need to do for all this data. You will need to create detection queries. You will need to make them good queries. You will need to tune them, and you're paying for all of this at the same time. So if you have the capacity to do that, very good. But if you don't have the capacity, what you're ending up with usually is going to be setting up very bad detection queries, and you're going to end up with a lot of alerts and alert fatigue again. My idea, which I've written about in my blog on security strategy, is to not go for enabling everything, because it drowns defenders. But what we need to do is prioritize logs. And this is a risk-based approach. And so this means that if you are concerned about something, let's say, what are the most likely things that happens to my organization? What are the most devastating ones? Where are the risks? Where are the most important servers? What are we protecting here? So once you've identified that, you can prioritize log sources based on that risk, right? And this means that you can, as you're developing them, make a lot better judgments on what log sources to prioritize, what log sources you need, and what log sources you maybe don't need. So you can save on that. So that's one thing when you're onboarding it. Another thing is when you are actually starting to mature and you're taking in more and more logs. So what we have in Microsoft Sentinel, obviously, Microsoft as well says prioritize your data connectors. This is the best number one tip in best practice: prioritize your data connectors, as I was just talking about. The other thing we can do to save on costs is filter them before we ingest them. We can, with the new Azure agent, the log analytics agent is being deprecated. It's moving out. With this new agent, we can use something called data collection rules to filter for only the events we need. And we can also do something called a workspace transformation. And this is a rule that allows us to remove some data fields from the data we're ingesting. and thus this means less gigabytes, and this means less cost. Um, so this is when you have connected all the logs you feel you need, and again, I say this is very important. You need to have a strategy for why you need the logs. Don't just connect everything because these are the tools we have. We must have them all. Connect the ones you need, and then make good, informed decisions about what you're gonna bring. It's not necessarily that you need to bring everything, and then use the Azure monitoring agent, or use something like Logstash, or use workspace transformation, so that we can filter the data and do um, what do you call it? Do a much better job at reducing costs, because I think most of the time people will enable everything and then just be like, oh, it's so expensive and there's so much things coming in. I think work step by step, um, and for every data source, do your due diligence. What of the data are you using? Can you filter out some of it to save on costs? And then build very slowly on that, so that you can, instead of going from a 0 to 100, you can go slowly to 90, but you're going to be much more familiar with your log sources, and you're going to be saving a lot of money once you get to that point, because you have done good work up until that. So I think that's the that's the obviously this is a lot of uh, technical work, because it takes um, knowing the infrastructure, it takes knowing what you're trying to protect, your risks, and it's also going to take some technical know-how to be able to connect the right logs and to filter them out, and know what you're going to filter out, right? So it's a very involved work, and it takes a lot of time, but the savings potential is very huge. If you're a big enterprise, then the savings are in the six figures if you get to that point. So that's something to think about for sure.
All right. I think that was quite detailed, Truls. Thank you so much. And thank you for explaining our partners about the different plans and going about what is needed for them. Also, I would love to, read about your blog. So please do share the link. We could add it up in the caption.